when it comes to people, what you don't see can hurt you the most. We like to believe that danger is obvious, that it wears a mask or it shouts in our face. But the truth is, the most dangerous signs in a person are often quiet, subtle, and easy to ignore. That's why today I want you to pay attention, because if you can spot these 5 red flags early, you can protect yourself, not just from toxic people, but from real harm, and the cost of missing them. It could be your peace, your safety, or even your life. So listen closely and stay alert. When someone manipulates without you noticing, that is one of the most dangerous signs in a person, because manipulation is not always loud, obvious, or in your face. It's often hidden in the smallest actions, the subtle words, and the quiet pressure you don't even realize you're under until it's too late. Manipulation thrives on invisibility. The person using it is skilled at making you believe their thoughts are your own, that their choices are your choices, and that what they want is what you want. They do this not by forcing you directly, but by planting seeds of doubt, by nudging you gently in a direction, by making you question yourself until you no longer trust your own instincts. This is why manipulation is so dangerous. It dismantles your ability to see clearly and slowly replaces it with their version of reality. The manipulator knows exactly which emotional strings to pull. They observe you, they study your behavior, and they pick up on your vulnerabilities faster than you realize. Maybe they notice you like validation, so they flatter you until you drop your guard. Maybe they sense you fear rejection, so they dangle approval in front of you, giving it and withholding it just enough to keep you chasing after them. Maybe they recognize you crave peace, so they make you feel guilty for speaking up, turning every confrontation into your fault. The tactics differ, but the result is the same. You begin to question your own judgment and lean more on theirs. Once that happens, they have power over you without ever raising their voice or lifting a finger. Manipulation also works because it often feels good at first. The manipulator doesn't show up with a warning label. They show up with charm, with attention, with exactly what you want to hear. They build trust, they make you feel understood, and they carefully craft a sense of closeness. That's the hook. Once you feel safe, once you let them in, that's when the invisible pressure begins. They don't tell you what to do, they make you want to do it. They don't demand, they suggest, they imply, they make you think it was your idea all along. And because of this, you don't resist. You comply, thinking you're making your own decisions. By the time you realize the influence they've had on you, it's already embedded deeply into your choices, your actions, your relationships. The most dangerous part of this behavior is how it strips away your autonomy. When you no longer recognize where your voice ends and theirs begins, you lose control of your own life. That is the true harm of manipulation. You may still believe you're in charge, but you're not. Someone else is quietly steering the wheel, and every decision you make is filtered through the lens they've created. And because manipulation is designed to be undetectable, it's easy to dismiss it, to tell yourself you're overthinking, to excuse their behavior as harmless or well-intentioned. But that denial is exactly what they want. The longer you ignore the signs, the deeper the hold they have on you. To guard against this, you have to develop awareness of your own instincts, of the moments you feel guilted, pressured, or subtly coerced. Awareness of when you're acting out of your own values versus when you're bending to someone else's will. Trust becomes the battleground. A manipulator will always try to erode your trust in yourself, so they can replace it with trust in them. That is why the key to protecting yourself lies in paying attention to those subtle shifts, those moments when something feels off, when your gut says no, but your mind feels pushed to say yes. That's the red flag. That's the signal you're dealing with someone who is manipulating without you noticing. When a person shows no empathy for others, it reveals something deeply dangerous about their character, because empathy is the foundation of human connection, the ability to recognize and share the feelings of another. Without empathy, there are no brakes, no inner compass that stops someone from hurting, exploiting, or using the people around them. A person who lacks empathy doesn't see you as human in the way you see yourself. They see you as an object, a means to an end, a tool to satisfy their own needs, wants, or desires. This absence of empathy creates a vacuum where compassion should be, and that vacuum is often filled with cold calculation, indifference, or even cruelty. When you encounter someone who has no empathy, you will notice how they dismiss the struggles of others or even take satisfaction in someone else's pain. Instead of leaning in with care or concern, they might laugh, mock, or remain completely indifferent. They do not feel guilt when they cause harm, and they rarely feel remorse afterward. If they apologize, it's only to avoid consequences, never because they actually care about the impact of their actions. This is dangerous because people without empathy can cross moral lines with ease. They can betray trust, break boundaries, and cause emotional or physical harm without hesitation, because to them, your pain means nothing. It's not that they don't understand what they're doing, they do, but it doesn't register as important. The absence of empathy also makes such people skilled at exploiting others. Because they are unaffected by your emotions, they can manipulate without hesitation, lie without guilt, and deceive without shame. They see your feelings as tools to be used, not respected. If you care for them, they'll exploit that care. If you confide in them, they'll weaponize your vulnerability. If you depend on them, they'll use that dependence to control you. This is why people with no empathy often appear strong or dominant in relationships and work environments. They are willing to go further than others because they're not weighed down by conscience. Another sign of empathy deficiency is the inability to put themselves in another person's position. They don't ask, "How would I feel if this happened to me?" Instead, they only ask, "How does this benefit me?" This mindset leads to relationships where they take constantly and give nothing back. It leads to workplaces where they climb the ladder by stepping on others. It leads to friendships where they drain energy without offering support. The pattern is always the same. They center themselves and erase everyone else. The most unsettling thing about people without empathy is how convincing they can be at first. Many learn to mimic empathy to fit in. They study human reactions and mirror them back in order to appear caring or compassionate, but when the mask slips, the truth becomes undeniable. Their concern is shallow, their kindness transactional, their connection hollow. You'll notice that when you need them most, they disappear or turn cold, because true empathy can't be faked when real stakes are involved. Protecting yourself from someone like this requires vigilance. Pay attention to how they treat people who can't give them anything, waiters, strangers, or those in weaker positions. Notice if their kindness is consistent or only appears when it serves them. Observe how they respond to suffering. Do they show genuine concern, or do they dismiss it, shift the topic, or even smirk? When you see no empathy, you are seeing a person without limits, and limits are what keep us safe with one another. A person with no empathy is not simply cold. They are unpredictable because nothing restrains them from causing harm if it benefits them. This is why spotting the absence of empathy early can save you from stepping into a relationship, a friendship, or a partnership that will ultimately cost you more than you ever imagined. When someone twists the truth to control the narrative, you are dealing with a person who knows the power of perception and uses it as a weapon. Truth is what anchors reality. It's what allows people to make decisions based on facts. But when truth is bent or reshaped, reality itself becomes distorted. Someone who constantly manipulates the truth doesn't just tell lies. They create an alternate version of events designed to benefit themselves and diminish others. This tactic is not always blatant lying. Sometimes it's leaving out details, exaggerating certain parts, or reframing a situation so that you begin to doubt your own memory, your own judgment, and even your own sanity. People who twist the truth do it strategically. They know that if they can control how a story is told, they can control how others see the world and how others see you. This is why it's so effective and so dangerous. They may portray themselves as the victim when they were the aggressor, or paint you as unreasonable when you are simply standing up for yourself. They do this not just to win arguments, but to maintain power and influence. The more they control the narrative, the more they control the people inside it. One of the most toxic effects of this behavior is something called gaslighting, where you are deliberately made to question your own reality. A truth twister will insist something happened when it didn't, or deny something that you know occurred until you start doubting yourself. Over time, this erodes your confidence and makes you dependent on their version of events. Once you stop trusting your own memory or perspective, you're trapped, because now the only story you believe is the one they feed you. This twisting of truth can also destroy reputations. A manipulative person knows that perception often matters more than reality. If they can spread half-truths or cleverly framed stories, they can influence how others see you without ever needing proof. They might plant subtle suggestions in conversations, tell people selective details, or phrase things in a way that leads others to a negative conclusion without them ever directly saying it. This way, they damage your credibility while keeping their own image intact. It's a form of social control that isolates you and strengthens their position. The danger of someone who constantly twists the truth is that they undermine trust at its very core. Relationships, whether personal or professional, are built on the belief that what someone says reflects reality. Once that foundation is broken, communication becomes a battlefield. Every word is suspect, every statement feels loaded, and every conversation leaves you questioning what's real. Living in that environment drains you emotionally and mentally because you are in a constant state of trying to separate fact from fiction. Another layer of danger is how skilled these people often are at making their lies believable. They say things with confidence, with conviction, and often with just enough truth woven in that it's hard to separate reality from distortion. They may use charm, authority, or even vulnerability to reinforce their story, making it harder for you to challenge them without feeling like you're being unfair or overly critical. Their goal is not just to tell their story, but to make you feel wrong for questioning it. To protect yourself, you have to trust your instincts when something feels inconsistent. Look for patterns, because someone who twists the truth rarely does it once. It's a repeated behavior. Pay attention to discrepancies between what they say and what they do, or between what they tell you and what others experience. Documentation, clarity, and boundaries become essential when dealing with such people. The moment you recognize that someone consistently bends the truth to maintain control, you are no longer just hearing a story, you are witnessing a strategy designed to keep you in their grasp. When a person charms first and exploits later, what you're really seeing is a deliberate strategy of disarming you with warmth, charisma, and attentiveness so they can get close enough to take advantage when your guard is down. Charm in itself is not inherently bad, but when it's used as a mask, it becomes one of the most dangerous tools a manipulator can wield. People who operate this way understand that humans naturally respond positively to friendliness and attention. They know that if they can make you feel seen, valued, and important, you will be more likely to trust them, give them access to your life, and overlook red flags. Their charm is the bait, carefully designed to lower your defenses. The initial phase of charm often feels intoxicating. They shower you with compliments, listen intently, mirror your interests, and make you feel like you've found someone who truly understands you. In professional settings, they may flatter your skills, act impressed by your achievements, or align themselves with your goals. In personal relationships, they might express admiration, give gifts, or offer unwavering support. All of these behaviors create the illusion of a strong bond and make you believe their intentions are genuine. But charm used for exploitation is not about who you are, it's about what they can get from you. Once trust is secured, the shift begins. Slowly, the charm that once felt empowering turns into a lever of control. The same person who praised you may begin to use that praise as currency, giving or withdrawing it depending on whether you comply with their wishes. They may ask for favors, financial support, access to your network, or emotional investment that benefits them disproportionately. Because you've grown attached to the version of them that made you feel so valued, you are more likely to comply, rationalizing their behavior and giving them more chances than they deserve. This is the exact trap they set when they led with charm. They knew it would make you second. Guess yourself when their exploitation emerged. The danger of this pattern lies in its timing. By the time you recognize the exploitation, you're often already invested emotionally, socially, or financially. It becomes difficult to pull away because the memory of their charm keeps you hoping that version of them will return. You might tell yourself they're just going through a phase, that they didn't mean to take advantage, or that if you give them more time, they'll go back to being the person who once seemed so kind and generous. But that charming persona was never the real person. It was the mask designed to get you here. What makes charming manipulators particularly effective is how they exploit universal human needs. Everyone craves attention, validation, and connection, and these individuals give it in abundance at the beginning. They understand that if they can make you feel special, it creates a powerful bond that's hard to break. They rely on that bond when they start taking more than they give, knowing that your emotional attachment will keep you from walking away immediately. Recognizing this behavior requires looking beyond the surface of charm and paying attention to consistency. Genuine kindness and authenticity remain steady over time, while manipulative charm fades once it has served its purpose. If you notice that someone's attentiveness disappears the moment they get what they want, or if their warmth is conditional on you meeting their needs, that is a clear sign of exploitation. Another red flag is if their charm feels rehearsed or overly polished, as if they are saying exactly what you want to hear rather than speaking with sincerity. Protecting yourself means understanding that charm is not proof of character. Charm can be a performance, and just because someone makes you feel good initially does not mean they have your best in tea. When someone crosses boundaries and doesn't stop, it is one of the clearest and most dangerous signs that they do not respect you, your space, or your autonomy. Boundaries are what protect your well-being. They are the lines that say, this is okay with me, and this is not. Healthy people respect those lines even when they don't fully understand them, because respect is about honoring the other person's comfort zone. But when someone ignores or repeatedly pushes past your boundaries, they are telling you that their wants, their needs, and their control matter more than your safety or peace of mind. That disregard is not accidental. It is a choice, and it reveals a pattern that often escalates over time. At first, the boundary crossing may seem small, almost harmless. They might interrupt you when you've asked for space, dismiss your requests as overreactions, or pressure you into situations you've said you're not comfortable with. They may laugh it off, make you feel guilty, or frame it as if you're the one being too rigid. These early signs are critical to notice because this is how they test the waters. If you let those minor violations slide, they learn that your boundaries are flexible, that you can be persuaded or worn down, and that they can keep pushing further. The danger here is not in the single act of overstepping, but in the repeated disregard that follows. Every time a boundary is ignored and you stay silent, the person becomes bolder. Soon, what started as a small dismissal turns into larger intrusions, controlling your choices, invading your privacy, dominating your time, or even manipulating your emotions. The pattern builds gradually, making it difficult to recognize just how far you've drifted from what you originally considered acceptable. By the time you realize how much space they've taken, it often feels overwhelming to reclaim it. Boundary crossers often use guilt as a tool to silence your resistance. If you say no, they frame it as if you're being selfish, unkind, or ungrateful. They might say things like, "I was only trying to help," or "you're too sensitive," turning the blame back onto you so you question whether setting that boundary was fair in the first place. This guilt tripping is intentional. It weakens your ability to stand firm, leaving you more open to further violation. In relationships, this can turn into emotional or psychological control. In professional environments, it can become exploitation of your time, energy, or resources. What makes someone who disregards boundaries so dangerous is that they are actively showing you they do not see you as an equal. To them, your no does not mean no, your comfort is irrelevant, and your limits are obstacles to be overcome. This mindset can escalate into toxic, even abusive dynamics, because once they believe they have the right to override your boundaries, there are few limits to how far they will go. People like this often thrive on control, and pushing past boundaries is their way of asserting dominance and conditioning you to accept it. Protecting yourself begins with recognizing that boundaries are not negotiable when it comes to respect. A healthy person will not need constant reminders of where the line is. They will hear it once and honor it because they value you. If someone keeps crossing after you've made yourself clear, that is not miscommunication, it is a red flag. It is a signal that you are dealing with someone who prioritizes their power over your well-being. The moment you notice this pattern, you need to step back and reassess whether this relationship or connection is safe for you. Your boundaries are your safeguard, and anyone who refuses to respect them is showing you, with their actions, exactly who they are. Rests at heart, by keeping a critical eye on whether their actions match their words over time, you can separate authentic connection from calculated manipulation. When someone charms first and exploits later, the charm is nothing more than camouflage, hiding intentions that will ultimately cost you more than the attention and validation you received at the beginning.